Good Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Plenty of Browns to talk about. A little bit later in the show, Casey Kinnamon from Dawg Daily will join us. We will also head to Carolina. Mike Solarte, sports director for Spectrum News 1 in North Carolina, will give us a little bit of the Panthers' perspective on any potential Baker Mayfield trade. And of course, we begin by talking Browns. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Mary Kay, as always, appreciate the time. You wrote an article, some takeaways from Deshaun Watson, settling 20 of those 24 civil suits against him. Take us through that and just what you found and the perception with that.
Well, I think one of the biggest things for Deshaun is the fact that the reason why he did this wasn't for an admission of guilt. Nothing has changed in that regard. He still maintains his innocence, and I still think he would like to try to clear his name if he does have to go to trial in those other 4 suits. But I think he recognized that this was just kind of taking on a life of its own, and this was an opportunity for him to settle the bulk of these suits, get most of them off the table, and try to move forward a little bit with his life, with his career, and let others move on as well.
You also mentioned, he referred to getting some help and just talking to people to kind of get straight. And that's, I think that's probably something that will be presented whenever the NFL Players Association defends whatever punishment comes against Deshaun Watson. Fair to say that's accurate?
Yeah, you know what? There can be mitigating factors when they are trying to determine the discipline, and seeking counseling and trying to make things right can be a mitigating factor. So not sure how that will be viewed, but that was something that he mentioned last week when actually I asked him kind of what he had to do in between minicamp and training camp to sort of get himself right. And he said he's taking advantage of all of the resources the Browns have to offer, including counseling. Now, this is a departure from the March 25th press conference when I asked him if he would seek counseling. And he said, no, I don't need to do that. I haven't done anything wrong. So I think the NFL at least will look somewhat favorably on the fact that he is getting some help right now. Whatever that help is for, we're not really sure. But he is getting help for events surrounding this ordeal.
Nationally, let's take a listen. Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp from FS1's Undisputed. This is about the whole process, and it's a new process where there's an independent, a retired U.S. judge who will hear this. But here is Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless on this new process.
But in the end, if there's any kind of appeals impasse, it still falls back on that there's the buck's going to stop on that desk, and it's Roger Goodell's desk.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I don't like, Skip. It shouldn't be if I go to court to fight a traffic ticket, I win. It shouldn't go back to the chief of police. It says, well, nah, we didn't like the outcome of this, Skip, so we want to go back. No, it shouldn't do that. It should go to another independent source and says, okay, you didn't like the outcome. You like the outcome. You get an opportunity to appeal. Let's go to a different. Yeah. But Skip.
I get you. But you know, and I know. In the end, the statement from these owners that is unstated is this is our business.
Yes.
And we have appointed this man to run our business on behalf of all 32 of us. And that man's name is Roger Goodell.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There's something that's transpiring in D.C. Be careful, Roger. You better be very, very careful with what's going on up in D.C. That there's some people that's going before Congress in the next couple of days.
It's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, so you open that can of worms.
Yeah.
You might not like the type of worms that come out of there.
And of course, Mary Kay, Shannon Sharp's referring to the hearings that are going on with Washington Commanders. Daniel Snyder will be subpoenaed to give a deposition about what has gone on with a culture that existed there under his leadership, which was not friendly in the workplace. In fact, they say there's sexual harassment. The point of this, though, is that's one of the ways the Players Association intends to defend Deshaun Watson is by the way the league is handling owners, correct?
Yes, the NFLPA, they are bracing themselves for what could possibly be, in their minds, it's not written in stone, but they think that up to a year-long suspension could be handed down for Deshaun Watson. They don't think he should be suspended at all. So they are gearing up for a fight. And the way that they will plan to defend this is the way the NFL has treated Daniel Snyder, Jerry Jones, and Bob Kraft in issues of alleged misconduct on either the part of themselves or someone in their organization. So the NFLPA is not going to go down lightly on this, and they're going to vigorously fight it. And so there are some hurdles to cross before everyone can agree on a suspension for Deshaun Watson.
And it will be part of a process, without question. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. The viewers all want to talk about this situation.
Yeah, this is Eric from Westchester, Ohio. I'm a lifelong Browns fan, and, you know, guilt or innocence aside on Deshaun Watson, at what point are league owners and fans going to start asking, why is Roger Goodell still running the league? I mean, we have all of these scandals that just get swept under the rug. Washington with the Gruden situation, these punishments that just seem inconsistent from year to year, don't really make sense. The collusion of keeping Colin Kaepernick off the field. At what point are we going to start looking at the guy in charge, Roger Goodell? Why is he still running the league? Why do the owners still want him? It seems to me the league runs perfectly fine with anybody running the league, anybody as commissioner. At what point are we going to ask, hey, Roger, maybe this isn't your gig? I don't know. Thanks. Love the show.
Appreciate the call. Mary Kay, I think Roger Goodell has been a pretty good commissioner of the NFL. I understand the question that people have with the way punishment is handed out. But the owners, it's their billion-dollar business. The players are, in essence, employees.
Yeah, well, Roger Goodell has, he's helped grow the league. He's helped taking it international. The TV contracts are through the roof. The league is making a ton of money. The owners are making tons and tons of money. So that has a lot to do with it. Whenever you have 32 organizations with thousands of employees, you are going to have issues. There are going to be problems that crop up. I think the NFL would argue that they're dealing with the issues and taking care of them as they see fit. And now it isn't just Roger Goodell who has to mete out justice in the NFL. Now when it comes to the owners or the players, they do have that sort of middleman now in the personal conduct policy. In this case, it's retired U.S. District Judge Sue L. Robinson, who will determine the initial discipline for Deshaun Watson. So there's that added layer there now in the personal conduct policy. So it's not all up to Roger Goodell. He can amend it as he sees fit, but he is no longer the judge, jury, and executioner. Yeah,
and that's probably by design to give a little bit of a check and balance to the discipline that's handed out. All right, let's head back. This is again from FS1's Undisputed. Shannon Sharpe, Skip Bayless, talking about their belief in what they have heard about a potential suspension in terms of length.
Originally, you and I thought it was going to be somewhere between 4 and 8 games. But as more and more women came forward and you started reading the gory details, I'm like, I don't know how he get past a year. I really don't. I didn't see it. I didn't see a way forward that at some point in time he could come back this season. And I believe that's what's going to happen. I believe Deshaun Watson is going to miss another year of football. Last year, they just didn't play it. This year is going to be because he's going to be suspended for conduct detrimental to the NFL. And there's no other way around it. Clearly, there was a pattern of disturbing behavior. He doesn't think that he did anything wrong. He made the women feel some type of way. They felt uncomfortable, felt they were put in positions that they should have never been put in, considering what they were there to do, the service they were there to provide. And so this is where we are now. He's settled 20-24. I don't know what's going on with the other 4, but the NFL is going to have their say, and it's going to be hard for me to see a scenario in which Deshaun Watson is not gone for the 2022 season.
And Mary Kay, I don't think anybody knows that. I wouldn't be surprised if he is suspended for the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he appeals it and gets it, down as low as 8-10 games.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like there's this groundswell or this growing momentum or buzz for the fact that that the NFL could be thinking up to a year. But then of course, it will be appealed, it will be fought, and maybe he gets it knocked back to something less than that. Again, some of it is speculation, but I do think the fact that that the NFLPA they really are bracing themselves for what they told Mike Florio was an unprecedented discipline, and some league sources have confirmed that for me, that that's what they're expecting. And so that's why I think everybody is mobilizing to try to figure out how to get through the 2022 season without Deshaun Watson, if it comes down to that, and it very well could.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer. Cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason and take a look at the quarterback position, if in fact it is an entire year that the Browns are without Deshaun Watson. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Deshaun Watson.
Hey, Dave, I'm calling in. You know I love the show. This is Cassius, the quintessential Cleveland Browns fan. So I want to talk about how long Deshaun Watson's suspension is going to be. I'm glad he settled the cases. I kind of knew all along that it would have to be a settlement. But this is what I'm saying first. A lot of people are going to say Deshaun Watson is guilty because he settled. And they're going to say that he said he was going to fight this vigorously to clear his name. But here is a story of caution. Sometimes it's the wise decision to go ahead and settle because you're risking too much by taking it to court. So that's why Deshaun Watson did that. Now, I think that the NFL is going to suspend Deshaun Watson for 10 games so that when he appeal it, they can go down to 8 games. They're not going to give him 8 because then it will probably get dropped down to 6. So they're going to give him 10 games. And then once he files his appeal, it'll drop down to 8. Either way, I'm glad things are moving forward. If Deshaun Watson is only suspended for 8 games, we will still make the playoffs, and we'll be rolling real strong once we come back. Go Browns!
Cassius always barks at the end of his voicemails. We appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, again, we've talked about nobody knows the length of the suspension. I think one of the things that by settling 20 of them, it's a first step towards possibly being able to move beyond it. And it eliminates the likelihood that he was put on the commissioner's exempt list, which is basically the paid leave, which could have been on the table if all of those things were still pending, I think.
Well, Actually, Roger Goodell took the commissioner's exempt list off the table at the owners' meetings in March after the initial grand jury failed to indict him on 9 criminal counts. So the lack of criminal indictments was basically what kept Roger Goodell from placing him on the exempt list, which, as you mentioned, is a paid leave of absence. So the only thing left on the table now is a suspension and or a fine, and that suspension can be for a finite number of games, for an infinite number of games, indefinite suspension, or there's one step up from all of that, and that's banishment from the league with an opportunity to apply for reinstatement at a certain point after certain conditions are met. So it's really anybody's guess the way this is going to go. They could do an indefinite suspension while things kind of play out a little bit, but now that the 20 suits are settled, maybe they'll put a finite number on it and just say it's for the 2022 season, and then they'll fight it and try to get it knocked back to 10 games, 8 games, or whatever the case may be. It's hard to say if he'll play in 2022, but I know that they will argue hard for that.
All right, let's assume worst case scenario for the Browns and Browns fans that he does not. I know you have written and talked about this as part of a Hey Mary Kay. Does Jimmy Garoppolo make sense as a person the Browns would trade for or do anything with if it's an entire season? And after you answer this, I have another thought there too.
Well, they did not have interest in Jimmy Garoppolo early on in March. They were considering trying to upgrade from Baker Mayfield. Jimmy Garoppolo was really not on the radar at that time because they didn't consider him to be a clear-cut upgrade over Baker Mayfield. It was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other in their minds. So it wasn't a deal back then, but things could possibly change if they find that Deshaun Watson is out for a year. That could alter the game a little bit, and maybe they'll take a look at things in a way that they didn't before. And who knows what if the 49ers were willing to take Baker off their hands and make a swap of these two quarterbacks. So, I don't see it happening, but anything can become possible if Deshaun Watson is going to be out for a year.
All right, another name that, and I just floated this one out there just in looking at guys that were signed, and this guy has a tie to Kevin Stefanski. So Teddy Bridgewater is currently the Miami Dolphins' backup quarterback. You see his salary at $6.5 million for 1 year as a backup to Tua. Is that the type of quarterback you could see the Browns maybe trying to trade Baker for? Baker gives a little bit of a higher upside than Teddy. I don't know that, it depends on where their evaluation with Tua is. But is that the type of guy that you could see the Browns being interested in acquiring again, with the premise being that Deshaun Watson misses all or most of the upcoming season?
Yeah, I think that the Browns think a lot more highly of Jacoby Brissett than maybe some of the fans do. You remember that Andrew Berry was with him in Indianapolis, and he knows the ins and outs of him. So I would say that, I just don't know that they would go out and try to replace Jacoby with a Teddy Bridgewater. If there was some clear-cut 1 year starting quarterback that you could get that you knew that was going to be significantly better than Jacoby and it made financial sense, and you thought he could get you to the playoffs, then I suppose you would strongly consider that. But right now, there aren't too many possibilities like that.
Okay, fair enough. Again, this is another one that you've written about. Kareem Hunt wants an extension, says he wants to finish his career here. Where do you think that factors in? How close do you think that is? Do you think it might happen?
Well, I got the impression from talking to Kareem, he seemed like he was a little bit in limbo on what his future is going to be. He made it very clear, as you mentioned, that he would like to be here, that he would like to finish his career, that he wants to sign this extension. But the fact that they haven't had those kind of substantive talks at this point, with training camp coming up next month, leads me to believe that perhaps the Browns are leaning towards letting him play out the contract, perhaps going out, testing the market, seeing what he can get, and then setting the price that way. And if it works out that he finds somebody to pay him more, or that has a better role for him in 2023, then they probably part ways. So right now, I don't think anybody's rushing out to give him this extension, but he certainly would like one.
Let's talk a little bit about that running back room. There's Hunt, there's Dearness Johnson, there's Nick Chubb, of course. You also have Jerome Ford, the guy they drafted out of Cincinnati, who, by all accounts, fits what they like in terms of running back. Do you think all of those guys are in the are part of that roster moving forward?
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to get all these guys on the field. So, something could happen between now and the start of the season. One area that I always look at is Dearness Johnson. He has such a cap-friendly contract. It's a $900,000 base with incentives that will enable him to earn up to $2.4 million. So some team that desperately needs a running back, if they get an injury in training camp or the early part of the season, might come calling for Dearness Johnson. So that's something I think to watch out for, because I do think it will be hard to get all these guys on the field. And with Dearness, if you could get a draft pick in return for him, that would be a pretty good deal.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We will also get Mary Kay Cabot's takeaways after mandatory minicamp has wrapped up, heading into training camp. Sports for CLE, talking Browns when we return.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a possible Deshaun Watson suspension.
Dave, this is Truth again, the Central Cleveland Browns. I would like to ask you a question. When Deshaun Watson gets suspended, if he's suspended, say, at the end of the month, will he be able to practice when it comes time for the Cleveland Browns to get ready for the preseason and practice? Is he allowed to practice? And then my next question to that is, when the season starts, if he's suspended for 8 games or so, or however amount of time, will he be allowed at the team facilities or not? Thank you.
Appreciate all of the voicemails, Mary Kay. I'm going to defer to you on this because I don't know the answer to that question definitively.
Well, if Deshaun Watson is suspended, he can practice with the team through training camp, and then his suspension would start before the start of the regular season. So he can be around through all of camp. He can take all those reps. He can bank reps. He can get ready to hit the ground running midway through the season if that's the case.
And then once the season starts, he would not be allowed in the building until the suspension ends, correct?
That's right. So he would have to go find somewhere to work out, to stay in shape, to work on his craft. But he would not be around the team, not be going to team meetings, not be at games.
Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure, so I deferred to you on that one. All right, off-season program wrapped up, and I know you also have written about this. What did we learn from the Browns during the OTAs and the mandatory mini camps?
Well, one of the overarching themes from the whole spring was camaraderie. Just building that team feeling, that family feeling. And they worked really hard on it. Deshaun Watson brought the guys down to the Bahamas. Myles Garrett took the guys down to South Beach. A lot of players went down to Amari Cooper's birthday party last Friday night. They tried to get together off the field. Now, there are so many fewer COVID restrictions. Everything's been dropped. So now they can get together freely. They don't have to worry about testing. They don't have to worry about all the things that they've had to worry about for the last 2 years. So I think there's just sense of freedom on their part that they can live life the way that they want to. So that has helped them. So that was one thing. And then it was a passing camp, and they really are trying to bring this passing game up to 2022 standards. And there was just a lot of passing. And, as soon as Deshaun is out on that field, it's going to be a much, much better passing game that we've seen in the past few years. And one that I think can keep pace with the best offenses in the NFL. Yeah,
I got to see a couple of those in person, the mandatory mini camps, and it is a noticeable difference. It really is. I know you've written about this as well. Second-year player has the chance to make the biggest impact on the defense, JOK or Greg Newsome. Which of those two do you think has the ability to really kind of turn it up a level or two? And both were pretty good as rookies.
Both were pretty good as rookies, and this is a tough question to answer because I would actually probably say it could be a tie. I mean, Greg Newsome, in addition to playing on the outside, will be playing some in the slot this year, and I think he's probably going to add some interceptions to his repertoire if he can. I know he's been working very, very hard on that, including he told me at one point that he will spend a little bit of time with the receivers just so he can kind of get the feel for that whole thing. But JOK, I mean, he can do so many things, and I think that Joe Woods will put a lot more on his plate in his second season. I mean, you can blitz with him, you can drop him into coverage, he can play sideline to sideline, he's fast, and he's involved in a lot of plays. So I'm going to say if I had to pick one of those guys, I think it might be JOK from a versatility standpoint, but very close.
Yeah, and keep in mind, those are first and second round pick from a year ago, and Browns are smiling about those still. This was a topic that came up later last week, and the Browns are looking into potentially renovating, or the initial report was building a new stadium. As we look at a statement from the Senior Vice President for Communications for the Haslam Group, the City of Cleveland partnership immersed in discussions to kind of develop the lakefront long-term execution of a project. They're studying feasibilities for not only a new stadium, but renovating First Energy Stadium that is currently the home of the Browns. There was an initial report that there was a covered site that you could use for mixed purposes, concerts and the like. What are your thoughts just on the whole stadium aspect? And I think that report was a little bit out in front of where the Browns organization and the Haslam Group are in terms of figuring out, is it renovating or is it new?
Well, the Browns quickly kind of put the kibosh on talk of a new stadium with that statement that you just read. However, if you are in planning with the city and the county and the state and the sports teams, and you're talking about developing the lakefront and revitalizing the city of Cleveland, why wouldn't you have the discussion about a stadium that you could close the roof on it, and you can build a village around it and do all kinds of things with it, and maybe still access that lakefront in another even more valuable way. So, if I were the Haslams, I would actually be pushing for a brand new stadium. You can get some funding from the NFL these days. That would enable you to have a Super Bowl here. You could use it for so many different things. It could be the crown jewel of the city. I'm always all about progress. Again, they kind of put the kibosh on it, but if I were them, I would be going all guns blazing towards a new stadium.
And you know, there is a young administration in the city of Cleveland now with Mayor Bibb, so they're forward thinking. So yeah, I agree with you. Go and make that a place people want to come and visit, and build the village around it. There are a number of NFL cities that are like that currently, so there are plenty of ways to model it after existing things that work.
Yeah, and you can have a cold weather Super Bowl and have it work out just fine. And I think the Browns have demonstrated, not the Browns, I mean the city of Cleveland, led in large part by David Gilbert. Cleveland has demonstrated that it can handle a big event. It really can. I mean, it would have to get creative in terms of hotel rooms and things like that. But Cleveland could handle something like that down the road. And I think that a new stadium would be the way to go.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. As always, Mary Kay, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, reader in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break. Mike Solarte, sports director from Spectrum News 1 in North Carolina. We're talking a potential Baker Mayfield trade from the Panthers' perspective. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns, a little bit of a twist. Baker Mayfield still on the roster, one of the most talked about destinations, the Carolina Panthers. Let's welcome in Mike Solarte. He is the sports director for Spectrum News 1 in North Carolina. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate the time. When you look at the quarterback situation for the Panthers, Sam Darnold, they picked up that fifth-year option for him, drafted Matt Corral. How have they looked in the offseason program, and is there still any talk that the Panthers may be interested in acquiring Baker Mayfield?
Well, I think there's always going to be talk. I mean, that's the nature of the NFL. That's the nature of the offseason in the NFL, is that there's always going to be talk about how can this Panthers team upgrade the quarterback room. And Baker's name continues to be thrown out there. Now, there's some things that are a little prohibitive about Mayfield coming to Carolina, namely his salary number. I mean, it's $18 million, and excuse me, I don't think the Panthers are really up for the challenge of taking that number and trying to fit it into their salary cap. So I think that right there is the biggest sticking point for the Panthers in terms of trying to acquire Mayfield. What goes the other way in the deal? Normally you don't trade players, but in a situation like this, you might have to move a player with the deal. A lot of times it's just picks. And so to me, the quarterback room right now, and I was actually going through some Ben McAdoo sound talking about this team and the offense, and it's a new offensive system. So everybody's learning this offensive system as they've gone through the OTAs, which just wrapped up. and with their mini camp. So I think that there's a lot of confidence that Sam Darnold can pick it up. And I think that because of the hurdles that would be in the way of acquiring another quarterback via trade, it makes it a tougher ask to try to. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's just a bit tougher putt to try to pull off to make it all happen.
Do you think the talk in Cleveland was the Browns would have to eat up to half, maybe even a little more of half that 18, 19 million that is owed of Baker Mayfield? Is that kind of what your sense is it would take to get it done in terms of the salary structure and the money?
I think that's one of the big hangups. I mean, it's a lot of money out there to bring onto the books, and the Panthers still have guys that they want to be able to take care of down the road. So they can't get too tied in to another big number. And I know Baker is responsible for the Browns' lone playoff win in a billion years, but there wasn't a whole lot of. I mean, if you look at some of the comments that were made by a certain wide receiver in Robbie Anderson, who's like, nah, I don't think I want this guy. I mean, you have that aspect of it too. Anderson said he was just defending the guy that's in his locker room right now, and it's nothing personal against Baker, but I mean, you've been around the game long enough. These guys that when they speak their mind with something like that, there's something there. So, I right now, I think that the Panthers, in my opinion, I think that the Panthers should just be standing pat. They've got 1 year left to Sam Darnold. They just got Matt Corral, who is obviously very green and has to learn the NFL. He has to learn this new system. He has to learn how to be a pro. But you can do that in a ball cap holding a clipboard in your rookie season. You can do those sorts of things. He doesn't even have to be the backup quarterback in his rookie season. They've got PJ Walker, who has shown flashes of being a decent quarterback, certainly not great, but he's a guy that can get them through. I don't think that there's a lot of faith in the Panthers being a championship contender in this season. I do think though there's got to be there's plenty of room for improvement, and that improvement has to show up in the 2022 season.
The 5 wins a season ago, won their first 3. A lot happened with Christian McCaffrey getting injured. How much pressure is on Matt Rule to show improvement and to win? And does the quarterback position factor into that at all?
There's definitely pressure on Matt Rule, and he's identified that. Like he's not blind to this. He knows that he's under a lot of heat this year to try to get things going in the right direction. Back-to-back 5-win seasons is not really cutting it. But I think that you have to look at the changes he made to his staff. When he first came to Carolina, a lot of guys on his staff had minimal NFL experience. There were staff changes in the offseason where now you have a veteran guy like Paul Pasqualoni working with the defensive line. You have Ben McAdoo, former head coach of the Giants, former offensive coordinator, a guy that knows how to put in an offense and make it work. He's now the new OC. Steve Wilkes, former head coach, the 1 year season that he had with Arizona. He's back working with the secondary, and he's the defensive passing game coordinator. So there's a lot more experience now in that coaching staff that I think was certainly missing in the first 2 years for Rule. And I think that he was trying to figure it out on his own. And I think he realized, I can't do this on my own. I need guys who have been around. I need guys who have seen the NFL. I need guys who know what this show is all about to kind of show me some things that I need to learn. And I think that was part of the reason for the changes. And I think when I look at this staff this year coming into the season, it's far different in terms of experience. It's far different in terms of a guy like Wilkes, who was a defensive coordinator for Carolina before he left for the Cardinals job. He's back in his home city. So there's guys, he's one of the guys that is on this staff now that this means something more than just a job. It means more to them to get this team back among the best teams in the league, because it's personal. And I think this staff is going to you're going to start to see that with this staff coming through once they get down to training camp in late July. One
of the national reports that had the Panthers acquiring Baker Mayfield mentioned the name Robbie Anderson. Browns need some veteran wide receivers. So I believe it was like Robbie Anderson and a 5th round pick for Baker Mayfield. Could you see that if the Browns eat some of that salary as well? Because that, again, you mentioned the cap space. Anything that comes off in veteran players coming back comes off the cap. So is that something that makes sense, or do you think that's way off base?
Well, I never say never. I mean, Scott Fitterer, when he was hired by Carolina, said that, the Panthers are going to be in on every deal. Like, if, they were in pursuit of Deshaun Watson, reportedly in pursuit of Baker, and those conversations and those discussions are still happening reportedly, when you listen to sources and that sort of thing. So I never say never when it comes to Fitterer and making a deal. It's got to be palatable. And while the Browns, in my opinion, have a certain degree of leverage in the situation that they can dictate the terms of the trade, if should one happen, the team on the receiving end, whether it's Carolina or another squad out there, they have a certain amount of leverage as well. Because, I mean, let's face it, the Cleveland at this point, it's Deshaun or bust. And there's no, I mean, you and I know there's no real guarantee that Deshaun Watson's going to be on the field week 1, because the NFL has yet to hand down any kind of discipline for all the things that he's gone through. I mean, it would not surprise me at all to see Deshaun Watson on the commissioner's list and be unavailable for X number of weeks to start the season. And then the Browns have Jacoby Brissett and I believe it's Josh Dobbs, the other quarterbacks on the roster. So when you look at that, it's like, okay, maybe Cleveland should try to rebuild that bridge with Baker if you want to have a chance. But, from everything that I read, and obviously I'm not there, everything I read, it's scorched earth, and that bridge isn't getting rebuilt anytime soon. So there's a lot of leverage for the team on the other side of a Baker Mayfield trade to dictate how much salary they want to take on, what players might go back the other way. I mean, it's obviously, as you well know, it's a very intricate web in the future of Baker Mayfield with the Browns.
Yeah, and what we're hearing is that that's not happening. They're not rebuilding that. That is too far gone. All right, before I let you go, just a gut feeling. Do you think the Carolina Panthers acquire Baker Mayfield, or are you getting the sense they're pretty firm with Sam Darnold, Matt Corral, and PJ Walker?
Like I said, I never say never, but if I'm Scott Fitterer and Matt Rule, I'm taking the next 5 weeks before the team reports to training camp and evaluating everything that they saw in OTAs and minicamp and saying, okay, these are our 3 guys right now. We know we can obviously make the room better, but is the short-term pain worth long-term gain? And there's no long-term guarantee with Baker. They've got 1 more year left with Darnold, and they've got a young quarterback in Matt Corral in the pipeline with obviously more drafts and more other moves that they could make down the road. I don't see it happening. But again, if it were to happen, I certainly wouldn't be surprised, because Scott Fitterer is a guy, as mentioned, said he was going to be in on every deal. And this is a franchise with owner David Tepper that has not had a lot of success on the field since Tepper took over. And he's a guy that likes to win. And they haven't been doing that. He wants them to start winning, and he'd like them to start winning yesterday. So gut feeling, I don't think that Baker Mayfield ends up in a Carolina Panther uniform. But again, if he does, it's not going to shock me.
Mike Solarte, news director or sports director. I almost promoted you there. Sports director.
Hey, I'll take it. As long as I get the paycheck with it, I'm fine. Yeah.
Sports director for Spectrum News 1 in North Carolina. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Mike. Thanks.
Thanks for having me. I do appreciate it.
All right, Mike Solarte. He is the sports director for Spectrum News 1 in North Carolina. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily on the other side of the break. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us on Sports4CLE.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one again about the Deshaun Watson situation.
Yeah, this is Rich Bowe here. I was just curious. I've been thinking about this. As soon as the Houston Texans organization got involved here, it seems like 20 of the 24 lawsuits were settled. Do you think that had anything to do with it? Signing off. Till next time.
All right, as always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. And Casey, I think the Texans being involved was part of it, but I think it was the constant barrage of new information, the threat of new suits, and I think that was by design by Tony Busby, the lawyer, for the claimants, for the 24 claimants in the civil suits. I think he played it perfectly public relations wise, and that led to the settlements ultimately.
Yeah, this wasn't Busby's first rodeo. He's applied these tactics before, and you're right. The information it was new to the public. Whether it was new to the people involved, we'll never know what was going on. But he just kept it coming and kept it coming, and I think that actually led to the NFL pressuring Watson to go ahead and settle these. And who knows what they told Watson behind closed doors, settle these, get these out of the way, and maybe that'll be taken into consideration when your suspension's handed out. It's all speculation at this point. But it feels like the NFL had a large part to do with Deshaun going ahead settling the 20 of the 24 now. And we'll have to see how the additional 4 play out.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree with you. Let's take a listen. Mike Florio on the Dan Patrick Show earlier today along that very topic about the NFL getting involved.
I think as a practical matter, and maybe there was a conversation off the grid, and you know how this happens, 3 layers deep, and this conversation never occurred, but it could be somebody from the league office got the message to Watson's camp. Look, what you need to do is settle these cases because there's just too many of them. We can't let this guy play with this many pending legal cases. You're going to settle them eventually, settle them now. And I think that makes it far less likely he will be put on paid leave. Because I was thinking as of last week, paid leave felt like it was inevitable because there was just too much hovering over Deshaun Watson.
It was last Friday when the Washington Post, Mark Maskey, said that, quoting, that expecting a significant punishment for Deshaun Watson. I asked a source, I said, and it's somebody involved in this, I said, what does significant mean to you? And he said, well, my significant is different than what the commissioner's significant is, or Deshaun Watson's camp, or the Cleveland Browns. What do you think is the punishment for Deshaun Watson?
I was told a day before Maskey's report that the NFLPA is bracing for something unprecedented.
And Casey, again, none of that sounds like it's short term when you talk about unprecedented and those kind of things when you throw it around. The other thing is, I've heard, and we've had a number of people nationally say, well, he settled because he's admitting guilt. I disagree with that. He's settling because it's the first step in getting past these civil suits.
Yeah, it was inevitable. I was of the mind it was going to play off until next offseason. But now that that's kind of out of the way now, like I said, there's still 4 additional, so we don't know which way that's going to go. But to get that first step, if you're going to get past this, you have to get past the legal stuff. You got to get past the suspension, and then we can finally start talking about football. But we're still a little ways off, and it seems like it's rapidly coming to a close. And I would expect we'll probably hear something first week of July. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I think we'll finally kind of get a concrete idea of where the suspension starts.
Yeah, and again, it will either be next week or that following week. I tend to agree with you. Here again, Mike Florio on the new process that is in place for these suspensions.
You got to remember the procedure that's going to be at play here. First, the league proposes a punishment, so they start high. Then independent retired judge gets involved and makes decision. Maybe it's something lower. Then commissioner has jurisdiction over the appeal, and the league can appeal. The league can say, we asked for a year. Judge Robinson, who's going to be in charge of this, said 8 games. We think it should be a year. Commissioner could say, I'll do 12. So there's a back and forth that can happen here. So yeah, you start high because you assume that through this process, the independent disciplinary officer is going to come in lower, and then the commissioner decides what the final outcome is going to be. So it doesn't surprise me that it would be a year. It wouldn't surprise me if it's longer than a year, frankly. The Trevor Bauer suspension by MLB, I think, as a practical matter, resonates in what the NFL does with Deshaun Watson.
And again, Casey, we've talked a little bit about that. This is very much court of public opinion, and that's going to factor into it. And there will be a give and take as far as what the final amount of suspension ends up being.
Yeah, well, Florio is doing a lot of assuming there. He's assuming the league starts high, probably likely. But to know, I don't know if the independent arbitrator is going to say the retired judge, like she could just agree, or she could go way lower. Like that's an unknown factor that we're going to find out pretty soon, how they feel about the situation. I'm of the same mind I've kind of been in. I'm thinking it's 8 to 10 games. I'm bracing for 10, maybe possibly 12, hoping for 8, and that would be, that right there would be unprecedented. That would be a very lengthy suspension and could be a nail in the season, that could kind of push everything off till 2023 as far as like aspirations for the Browns and the franchise. But a year seems highly unlikely.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we will continue talking Browns. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the whole Deshaun Watson situation.
I want to comment on the Deshaun Watson case. The NFL has to be very, very careful. There's suspension here because you're going to find out there's going to be more women accusing other NFL players of sexual misconduct, that they feel as though they get their money, and in the things that's going on with Deshaun, there's going to be trouble on both ends. Thank you for taking the call.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, I know the NFL in its rookie symposium addresses that kind of thing, that you got to be very aware, these young players who have signed large contracts, the situations you place yourself in. That's part of what they do before they even go out. After they get drafted, the NFL does address that with these players.
Yeah, and the caller has a valid point. I mean, yes, the NFL has to be very careful how they handle this because they're setting precedent. And imagine being a public relations officer for the NFL. That's got to be a sleepless job. Your phone could ring, and it could be anything. Look at the Henry Ruggs situation from last season. You have what Deshaun's going through right now, and they're going to set a precedent here with like Calvin Ridley when he got suspended for a year for gambling. They set a precedent with that, so the next time something like this happens, there's precedent. So that's what they're going to do with Watson. So if something similar happens down the line, they have this to refer to. So he's right. They have to be very careful with how they handle it because it does set a precedent going forward.
All right. This is from 33rdteam.com. So those are former NFL executives, Joe Banner among them. So they say one potential surprise move for each and every NFL team. And for the Browns, it would be cutting Kareem Hunt. By cutting Kareem Hunt, the Browns would save $6.25 million and not incur a dead cap penalty. I get the monetary point of that. I don't see any way the Browns cut Kareem Hunt because you're taking away one of your best red zone threats historically the last couple of years, and he was injured last year.
Yeah, I get it from a numbers perspective the same way you do. Yeah, it would be saving money. But what's this team telling you? Why did Jadeveon Clowney come back for one season? To chase a Super Bowl. So a team with Super Bowl aspirations, you don't trade Kareem Hunt, you don't cut Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is a weapon and you use him. And it kind of all hinges on the Watson thing. Like if Watson does get suspended for a full season, well, then your Super Bowl window is not this year. So then kind of everything's on the table at that point. But say it's an 8-game suspension. You will need Kareem Hunt to buoy this team. You will need him to keep you afloat until Watson does come back. I mean, Kareem Hunt is a weapon. It can be used in a multitude of ways, not just as a running back, but from in the slot. And he's just dangerous. He's a dangerous threat anywhere around in the red zone. Like, I would love a scenario in which you could keep Kareem Hunt, but I don't think you get to. I think you got him for this season, and you have to use him.
Yeah, I'm with you. We talked earlier with Mary Kay. He'd like an extension. He'd like to stay here. Money, they may not be able to work it out. All right, let's take a look at this. This is from NFL Rumors tweeting this out. Top free agents that are available. I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is coming back here. J.C. Treader, I don't think so either. Julio Jones, Will Fuller, Sheldon Richardson, and Ndamukong Suh said he ain't going. The Bucs are not going to re-sign him. I don't think the Browns are likely to bring back or sign any of those free agents. Do you see a scenario where they bring one of those guys into training camp?
I mean, I get it. I get the infatuation with Julio Jones, but let's face facts. He's 33 years old. He's missed 7 games in each of the last 2 seasons, and he has scored a grand total of 4 touchdowns over that span. I think it's safe to say that Father Time has finally came for Julio. No shame, he had a heck of a career, but don't chase names. Don't pay for a name. Pay for productivity. And just the way this everything's set up with the wide receiver room and defensive tackle, as it's currently constructed, they're going to let those players go into camp and get all of them reps. They're going to try to solve this issue from inside of the house. So they're going to want someone to identify themselves as someone who's, the receiver room's a little different because you already have starters in place. You need guys to identify themselves as heavy rotational players, like a speed threat. You need a slot receiver, which it looks like Bell's well on his way to claiming that already. The defensive tackle room, they just need people to step up. Now, if we get 2 weeks into training camp and you get in that second preseason game and say no one's stepping up, or say that Anthony Schwartz pulls a hamstring and he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, then you might kick the tires on a Will Fuller. But going into camp, they're not going to make any moves. They're going to roll in with the players that they have and try to cultivate some of those players to step up and take positions from, to avoid having to pay for depth. I think they're just going to try to see if they can get somebody to grab the reins and take the position.
Are you comfortable with the young wide receivers? It seems like Kevin Stefanski is. I know they're not going to say that they're not, but it certainly seems like David Bell and Anthony Schwartz have earned their shot.
I'm comfortable with the skill sets they possess in that wide receiver room. Now they have to prove it, but that's true with anything across all of sports. It's good in theory, but they have to see the application of it. So that's why those preseason games are going to matter to these young players. They're going to have to go out there and show that they can not only perform on the practice field, but they can take it to the game when the bullets are live and they can actually perform. But just from a skill set perspective, yeah, I am.
Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. As always, Casey, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you read him, Dog Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here 4 o'clock tomorrow. Scheduled guests Quincy Carrier and Eddie McDonald of Dog Pound Daily. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE right here. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.